Our first guests tonight are here to evaluate some of the statements and the various positions being espoused from all sides of the political spectrum. Here is just a recent sampling.
No mother, no father should ever have to fear for their child walking down a street in the United States of America.
Until the stand your ground law is abolished in Florida, I will never perform there again.
I'll send this one out as a letter back home. The justice for Trayvon Martin.
You know that they want to give George Zimmerman a gun now? The Florida state law is that he can get his gun back. I say if he gets a gun, Casey Anthony gets a baby.
I think the jury made the right decision based on the evidence presented.
It's not about Trayvon Martin. It's about the money. And then the politicians use the poor boy's death to push gun control or whatever they want to push. So Trayvon Martin's being exploited now. All right, they're exploiting him, and it's wrong.
Joining us now, author, radio talk show host, and Fox News contributor Monica Crowley, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the New York Post, Fox News contributor Michael Goodwin, and criminal defense attorney Rebecca Rose Woodland. Rebecca, let me begin, if I may, with you. We are watching a stampede of so-called civil rights activists. This administration, the chief law enforcement officer in the country, basically saying, the hell with the U.S. judicial system, the hell with the evidence. We're going to play politics with this verdict, and we're going to vilify, demonize, and persecute till hell freezes over George Zimmerman.
I am so sad to see a situation that has arisen after this verdict. We have a criminal justice system that did its job. The prosecution put on a case. The defense did what they did by putting on some witnesses and allowing the prosecution's case to speak for them in a self-defense situation that George Zimmerman and the jury found was not guilty. They acquitted him. That is it. That's why we have a justice system.
Michael, have you ever seen a president and an attorney general basically dismiss the foundation of our judiciary, our judicial system, the jury system, and a verdict? I mean, this is incredible to me.
Well, the answer is no. I've never seen a president or an attorney general do anything close to this, Lou. And it is increasingly hard to see the difference between Al Sharpton and Eric Holder. I mean, they are attacking this, using the same line of attack. And I will point out that Al Sharpton has before been the go-to guy when the White House wants to advance an argument. So I think somewhere in the White House and the Justice Department, there is now going to be a push to do away with stand your ground laws, to make them unconstitutional.
But who cares? But I mean, seriously, and let me ask you this.
But this is the divisive nature.
Who cares what this administration thinks about gun control, about gun rights, about stand your ground laws? It is absolutely indifferent to the enforcement of laws that it disagrees with. It is absolutely committed to the politicization of law enforcement, where it has an ideological purpose.
I completely agree. However, we do have to care because they will initiate an agenda that will require a response.
And Monica, the idea that this administration, the president decided to stay silent over the course of 4 days, and then suddenly on the 4th, the president's spokesman says, oh, and by the way, he agrees with the civil rights activists, everything that's being said by Reverend Al Sharpton, all that has been uttered by the Attorney General, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer. What kind of games are they playing?
Well, you'll recall that very early on in Obama's first term, his very first chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, actually gave voice to a Saul Alinsky philosophy, which is never let a good crisis go to waste, even if you have to manufacture one. So you have this tragedy of the shooting death of Trayvon Martin, which they are now leveraging in two ways. Number one, to try to get gun control because they couldn't get it through the legislature, they couldn't get it through the Congress. And number two, to exploit the death of Trayvon Martin by empowering the race hustlers and the political opportunists, of which they are one and the same, in order to try to divide. Remember, the left can never really govern. They can't do anything because they don't have any facts or history or any kind of virtues or arguments on their side. They have to divide in order to conquer. That's what this case is all about. That's why they introduced the racial element to begin with. And for this administration to be using the Department of Justice, which is not, Lou, the Department of Social Justice. The Department of Justice is supposed to be ensuring the equal protection under the law for all of us. For them to be using the DOJ the way they use the IRS to target broad swaths of society or to target one group over another is a disgrace. And that means this is the movement of a constitutional republic into a banana republic.
And what is the profit here? Excite your base to so poorly serve those that you pose as representing their interest? I mean, when I think of 40% unemployment among black youths in this country, and I watch Al Sharpton playing games with his cadence and his cheers and has a music mix behind it as he tries to rally the NAACP to what? To attack the jury system, stand your ground laws, instead of, in any way, the good reverend should be tending to his flock. Right. And I find it extraordinary that this is happening, because the division that you talk of, why not focus on actually moving this country ahead instead of this nonsense? Because it is palpable nonsense.
To me, it is an ideological war, and it's ideology over everything else. Jobs don't matter, really education, even the legal system doesn't matter. It's about transforming everything in America in Barack Obama's vision, and this is all part of it. So,
what does he envision? A wasteland?
Well, it's sort of one issue at a time, where the federal government is in charge of everything, and so where the states don't matter, nothing matters. Individual liberties are curtailed because the President of the United States wants to.
We're going to come back with our panel. And the first question I want to ask each of you is, how can the national media, how can President Obama, how can Al Sharpton and Eric Holder, in good conscience, stand up and act as though Trayvon Martin's murder, his death, his shooting, was in any way more important in the national psyche than the deaths of the 4 children who died in Chicago, the president's hometown, during the 20 days of that trial? How is it that this president hasn't said one single word about those children who died without guns in their hands and without standing their ground, and this president hasn't said one word about their families? We're coming back with Monica Crowley, Michael Goodwin, Rebecca Rose Woodland. Much more on the political fallout from the Zimmerman verdict and the very dangerous political games being played by so-called community activists. Stay with us. Why no presidential attention, Rebecca, to the 4 victims, the children who were murdered in Chicago, while a jury was exonerating George Zimmerman?
I don't know. The focus seems to be misplaced here. The executive branch has their powers. The legislative branch has their powers. If there are laws that people are unhappy with, then you appeal to your senators, your representatives, and those laws are then either changed based on the constituency. This is not an executive position to take on one individual case that is very unfortunate. No one wanted this young man to die. But the court of law found by a jury of his peers, and yes, they were his peers. There's been questions about that. They were fairly chosen by both sides. Both the prosecution and the defense chose those 6 women. And those women said they deliberated, they heard the law, and they applied it. That is what justice is.
I think most of us believe in the jury system, the U.S. judicial system, except for, of course, the Attorney General of the United States and our president. and of course, Reverend Al Sharpton. Let's listen to Al Sharpton again, setting the tone for at least the moment, if not the day, and for the conference for the NAACP.
I don't care how controversial you think we are. I realize when we come, the heat is on and you're speaking because we got you sweating. We cannot have our sons and daughters' lives on the line for anybody that wants to pursue them, follow them, and kill them and say it's in self-defense. We didn't come to argue the jury verdict. Jury has spoken. But now the people gonna speak. It's time to march again. It's time to march again. It's time to march again. Stand up, fight back.
Show some guts, Al. Take your folks and march on Chicago. More than 200 people killed so far this year in the city of Chicago. And you might, Reverend, call up the White House and talk to Mr. Obama and say, why don't you talk about those children who've been murdered? Why don't you quit playing games and actually try to help the people you purport to represent? That would be helpful. Just a thought, Reverend. Michael, as we look at this, this is headed where? This 100 tour rally by a MSNBC host. I mean, maybe I'll start an action network myself. I'd kind of like to get out and do some touring. This is crazy stuff. Right. I mean, you've got an MSNBC host, Reverend Al Sharpton, an activist, a political advisor to the president. Really, I mean, what is he doing here?
Well, he's freelancing, and the White House is with him. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that somewhere the Justice Department's going to be helping him with the tour. They're going to be.
Well, they paid for demonstrations. Right. Listen to this: the Justice Department paid to help demonstrations against George Zimmerman last year.
But it's supposed to be a non-bias. Right. Where is the non-bias one? Then they should fund both sides. Demonstrations against
I'd rather they wouldn't fund either side.
Why the hell should the Justice Department be funding demonstrations?
They shouldn't.
Lou, there's another side, too, to the Chicago incident. And it's New York. Here you have Eric Holder talking about stand your ground laws, and this was a legal gun in Chicago. The New York City Police Department, which has been the most successful police department in America, if not the world, at getting illegal guns off the street, Eric Holder wants to slap a federal monitor on it because he thinks the police are being too aggressive. It has saved thousands and tens of thousands of young black and Hispanic lives through its preventive policies, and yet Holder wants to smack it down. His priorities are backwards.
Look, we have all seen verdicts. Thank you. We've all seen verdicts with which we disagree. Casey Anthony, a lot of us thought she killed her kid. She gets off. O.J. Simpson, double homicide. He gets off. This is the way the system is constructed. What they are doing now, and using the President of the United States by his own volition, the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, equal protection under the law, using vast sections of the U.S. government to then exploit a verdict for political purposes and empowering the race hustlers in order to do that, to drive divisions among the American people, is destructive to our Constitution and destructive to our way of life, and a disgrace that the national media is playing along with it and fanning those flames. Totally reckless, totally irresponsible, and destructive.
Now, they're not playing along with it. They're kowtowing to power. And President Obama and Eric Holder are not speaking for the powerless. They are the powerful. They hold power, political and governmental power in this country. And tonight we're going to speak truth to power as we may. And we thank you for doing so. Thanks for being with us.